Hello, hello. Welcome to the Mother Days podcast. As you can probably hear, we are joined by not just me and Sarah, but we have Eric Olsen joining us, and we have Ocean Olsen in the house too.
We have Ocean Rain.
We are so excited because this is the episode you guys have been waiting for, where Sarah is going to be joined with Eric to talk about their birth story. And there is a lot to cover. So I'm excited to just jump in. Whee!
Well, as you guys know, for probably a couple weeks again this time, I had prodromal labor. I really thought this baby was going to come on Eric's birthday, and cut to 16, 17 days later is when she ended up coming. So that was quite a long stretch there.
I thought it was June 4th because of my dream.
Well, when he was gone and out of town in Washington, D.C., I was 36, 37 weeks pregnant. Or 37, I think, at that point. But I had COVID. And so I was having crazy contractions and a fever and all that stuff. So,
and didn't you have a medium tell you, or someone told you this is the day, and it was when Eric was away, and you're like, that's can't be the date?
No, someone said something was happening on the 18th. And I was like, yeah, Eric's going out of town. But they didn't tell me when he was gone that anything was going to happen. I just was worried because I got COVID that I was going to go into early labor or something. But anyway, so couple weeks leading up to it, had some...
With the whole bus that I was with, because I was chaperoning Wyatt's 5th grade trip to Washington, D.C., was convinced that Sarah was going into labor. And I flew home early from D.C.
I know. Well, you got really sick.
It wasn't about me going into labor at all. It was about how sick I got.
Yeah, you got really sick.
It was about the fact that I was having the shakes and I was having a fever.
And then Sonia got COVID, remember? And then we were like, if Sonia goes down, what are you going to do?
I know. Yeah. The one night was just really not great. And then he ended up booking a flight the next day because I was just really sick. Okay. So we got down to the last couple of weeks there, and I was 3 centimeters dilated, and I was having these contractions on and off. And our doctor was like, don't go too far because you never know. It's your 4th baby. You're contracting, you have a really stretched cervix, you're 3 centimeters dilated. So she'd come back a week later and she'd be like, oh my gosh, you're 4 or 5 centimeters dilated. By the time I went into labor, I was already 6 centimeters dilated.
Yeah. And I kept being Sarah, this is going to be the quickest birth. It's going to be a few hours, just at 6, whoops.
Yep, it did feel like that. But the day that, so it was the 16th, I woke up that morning. I had had contractions the day before pretty consistently all day. It was every 5 minutes or so, I would have a contraction. It was so mild that I just kind of felt it happening all day. And I was like, wow, maybe this is going to turn into something at night. And then I'd go to sleep and woke up and nothing. And my son came out that morning and he was like, any contractions today? And I was like, no. I was like, not today. I was like, but you never know. It can just come on out of nowhere, And he was like, yeah, that's true. And so Eric wanted to, he was taking the kids somewhere, and then he was going to maybe go check out this RV, and it's about an hour away. And I was like, go check out the RV. I have to do my newborn stress test, and then my doctor's coming, so I'll keep you updated. But yeah, you guys should totally go check out the RV. Nothing's happening. It's totally fine. So I go to the stress test. I'm having a couple contractions. I end up going back home. My doctor meets me. She checks me and she's like, you know what? Your water bag is really bulging. She was like, and it feels much thinner than it did before. She's like, I feel like maybe your water's going to break this time. And I was like, oh, really? That's interesting. And she was like, yeah. She's like, I'm not going to do like a sweep, because I had already done like 3 sweeps, by the way, over the course of like weeks. I had done all the things, you know, the like spicy food and the dates and the sex and the everything. And like, you know, nothing was putting me in curb walking.
All the figure eights on the ball. I was like, keep grinding on the ball.
So many figure eights on the ball every morning, all day.
Spicy papaya salad.
So she was like, you know, I would say let's just like keep an eye on it. But if you've not gone into labor by Saturday, which would be my 42 weeks, she's like, then I think the next step would be that we would just break your water and then go there. And I think you would just go into labor right away. And I was like, okay. And so it was close to lunchtime. So I was like, you know what, Sonia, let's go get that spicy papaya salad and take a walk, you know? And so we went to get the salad. I was so uncomfortable at the restaurant. I was like, man, I can hardly sit on this chair. Like, it's so uncomfortable. I was like, let's go get a coffee afterwards. And we walked to get a coffee. And I was like, oh, I feel like I'm having contractions right now. This is really like, feels kind of intense. Like everything feels like it's laying like really low in my pelvis, you know? And I was just like not comfortable. Let's just go home. And so we drove home. I got back to the house. I sat on the ball for a few minutes. I was like, oh, relief, you know, of the counter pressure.
We had a little FaceTime. I took a photo of you being like, woo!
But it wasn't the FaceTime yet, because I think I went for a walk first.
Oh.
And then when I went for the walk, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I might be going into labor. And I came back in. I think I don't know if I called Eric first or if I FaceTimed you. But I was like,
probably FaceTime Teresa before you called your husband.
No, because I didn't want to like pull you out of where you were if it wasn't real. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to like ride this out for a little bit before I give anybody a heads up. And then I FaceTime Tez and was like, I think this might be real. I think this might be happening, right?
And I took a photo. Yep, I remember. I woke up from a dream. And I woke up and I was like, I need to message Sarah. And I texted you that morning. And I was like, just checking in. And then you're like, hey, you just told me that same story about the water bag being thinner and everything's feeling heavy. And I was like, yeah, I had a feeling that there was a shift today. And then you're like, can I FaceTime you? And I snuck out. It was like 6 a.m. or something. I snuck out into the bathroom to FaceTime with you. And I ended up waking everyone up because I was like, I was making a lot of noises like that. And I took that photo of us. It's like one of my favorite photos. You've got your arms up. It's like the last belly shot. And it was so cute. And you're like, I think this is it. This is the day.
Yeah, it did. I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And so I texted Melissa, Dr. Melissa, my doctor, and I was like, I feel like this might be happening. I'm going to give you like a heads up. Eric's in Thousand Oaks. He's like an hour away. I was like
talking to Randy about the sleeper tent on the roof.
And I called Eric and I was like, so he answered the phone and he goes, are you in labor? And I started laughing and I was like, have you seen the RV you want to see yet? And he was like, no, we haven't gotten there yet. And I was like, go see that one and then get in the car and start driving back because I think I am in labor.
Cute.
And he was like, okay. And so then I was sort of texting him like, give me your ETA. How far away are you? And I just started doing I got my bags together and like started, doing my, I was using the birth sling. Aww. And I was on the ball.
And at this point, how regular were they?
They were, I think, more like 6-7 minutes apart. Then they got very quickly,
good birth.
That's a good birth. Very quickly, they went from that to like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And then it's not that they were super consistent, which is also like sort of a precursor to, when they are consistent, it's like optimal positioning. When they're not consistent, there's probably a little bit of like the body's trying to like readjust where baby is. So I was like, oh, they're not very like, it's not like 4 minutes and 13 seconds, 4 minutes and 13 seconds, you know, there's been times in birth or in labor where it's been very specific.
Yes. And that's good because you always know to expect it. When there's a pattern, you're like, all right, I got about 15 seconds before the next one. You know?
Yes. It's a little bit like, oh, okay, that one was 5 minutes. And it was like, oh, that one was like 2 minutes later. Like that feels really quick.
Were you using an app? Like a timing app?
Yes, I was. I was using an app and it kept telling me every 3 contractions to go to the hospital too.
I have that same app.
So then I called my doctor again and I was like, yeah, this is how far apart they are. They are getting more intense. I was like, Eric's almost back here. When you were here, was she here yet or she hadn't gotten here yet? Do you remember?
She had not gotten here yet.
Yeah. So she was like, okay, we're going to head over soon. And she was like, and then we'll, you know, kind of assess the situation. And, you know, you guys know that I was group B strep positive. So we didn't want to wait too long to get to the hospital because I wanted to make sure I got at least 1 dose of the antibiotic before giving birth. And I was like, well, I'm already 6 centimeters. I'm going to get there. I'm going to labor for a little bit, get the antibiotic and push the baby out and we'll be done. So that's what I think. I think it's really what happened with Winter. It was so fast. Like I pushed her out in 20 minutes, right? So I really thought that's where we were
Well,
headed.
no, we thought this baby, you were just going to breathe the baby down. There won't even be any pushing. You're just going to breathe this. And do you remember, I feel like I screwed this up for you. Do you remember I asked someone, whoever we were interviewing, and I was like, can you breathe out an 11-pound baby? And then we were like, ha, ha, ha. Oh, this baby won't be that big.
I know. They also told me the growth scan, they were like, we think she's going to be your smallest baby. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay, great. It's going to be ugly. And she wasn't. So anyway, we started going around, like grabbing the baby bag, grabbing the hospital bag, grabbing the blanket that I wanted, like all the cute things. And then Wyatt was like taking stuff to the car. Aww. And I was just kind of, you know, riding the waves. And I have to say, like the labor portion of my birth story is exactly what I wanted. It was so beautiful, like in every way. And the doctor got there and she has a doula that she works with, Anastasia, and you know, she's a superstar. They both are. And they you know, kind of like watched me. They were taking pictures. We called my friend Nikki to come. She was going to take photos. I was like, oh, if you can make it, great. And if you can't, she's like, I'm on my way. She's like, no, I'm coming. I was like, okay. And so, you know, we just kind of hung for a bit. How long do you think we were at the house? These time things I don't know.
12 hours probably.
Okay, so that was a while. So we hung at the house. So amazing to have an OBGYN at your house. Like,
that is unbelievable. So is that something she just offers as a part of her service?
So her service is like very similar to a midwifery service. So it's like she's an OBGYN who sort of operates more like a midwife. So she does like what a midwife does, comes to your home and everything. You're also paying her the same way you would pay a midwife. You're paying out of pocket. But then you can also get reimbursed through insurance with her, which is really cool too. So, you know, we interviewed a doctor like that on our podcast, Dr. Fabi.
That's right.
Who did the thing when she went through and explained the whole thing, because this OBGYN used to have 40 patients a month. And it was just like, you know, really hard for her because she wanted to be someone who was very available to her patients, but it's hard to do that when you have 40 patients a month. Then you're going from, you know, one to another to another to
That's the hard thing about they're all guest dates. So it's like you can say, this is when I'm due. And some people come 2 weeks early, 3 weeks early, 3 weeks late, 2 weeks late. That's so hard. I can't imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when you have like a midwife or an OBGYN that does this, then you know that you're going to have that provider. They're going to be there for you. So she was here at the house with us for a while. The kids were all here. It was so cute.
Oh my gosh.
And then we made a decision. Okay, we got to get to the hospital. Wyatt decided to come with us. I have a video. Why are you smiling?
He's just such a stud.
He's such a stud. He was like carrying the bags, and then I gave him my phone. I was like, take a video, and I'm in the front seat, and he's like videoing from the back seat of me.
Cute. Oh my gosh. Hospital. Can you send me that?
Yeah, I will.
He lasted about 300 yards actually sitting in the seat, and then she had to go on all fours.
Oh, wow. So at this point, like if you could give it like a numerical value out of 10, what was the intensity?
Numerical out of 10, I would say probably like a 5.
Okay.
I would say I was happy there.
Okay.
Because it felt really intense. It always feels really intense for me to be bent up, like to be sitting in any capacity. Like I really need to, like every photo is of me like reaching to the sky, trying to grab onto something. Like, I did this thing this time where every time I had a contraction, I would just like make my body really long and like reach up and put my hands in the air and like, I had set this like intention where I wanted to call in like, joy and like this like really, I don't know, like happy, loving feelings like as I was having my contractions. So I just kept taking myself back to that place. And I would, if I felt like it was so intense, I would start laughing.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And then I would like laugh at myself.
Oh.
And then we were in the lobby. We got to the lobby of the hospital. And this RN walks up, and I'm like, Eric went to the desk to tell them, we're here, but we're waiting for our doctor. We're walking up with her. And this like nurse walks up and she was like, what'd she say? She's like, how many you got in there? You're huge.
Oh, thanks.
I was in labor, like having a contraction.
Being a nurse, like what? Like
I literally just ignored her, I was just like, oh my God. I just like looked outside, like was trying to climb the window of the hospital, and then Wyatt was just kind of like standing there holding all of our stuff, and it was so cute. And the girls stayed behind, but the plan is that they would come later for like a little bit too.
So Sonia had the girls back at the house.
Mm-hmm. Of course, they were in tears when we left, like wanted to come with us, but it was good that we did it this way.
Yeah.
So they got us. We walked up to the room, and we had this nurse who took us in, and it was funny. Like her energy immediately, I was like, it doesn't feel like our vibe, And she walks in, and she walks over to the door of the bathroom, and she's like, you need to put this gown on. And I was wearing this like really flowy, super comfortable dress, this Doan dress that I was like, I had thrown on right before we left because I could squat in it. I could like, move around. And I was just like, oh, it's not restrictive. And it just felt so comfortable. And so I was just like, oh, I'm not going to wear that. I'm going to wear what I have on. She's like, you're going to give birth in that.
Oh,
and
God.
I was like, probably not. I'll probably be naked at that point, but like, what? And so my doctor and the doula just sort of very quietly went out and was like, this isn't the right fit. And like, we got a different nurse very quickly, but also really great, like to know that that's, a possibility. Like, you need to advocate. I'm not going to wear that. She was trying to get me to put on the gown. Did not feel comfortable to
with
me.
The little bare bum sticking out the back. No.
They're like hot, because they're so thick. But anyway, I was just like, no, I'm good. And so then I just was like, okay, we're going to get into our flow. I asked if they had a yoga ball. They brought a yoga ball in. Wyatt was there, and I was like laboring. He was holding the yoga ball for me on the bed, and I was like laboring over that. And then we got the birth sling. And of course, I had like major bathroom issues. I was like trying to go to the bathroom or needed to go to the bathroom, couldn't go to the bathroom, couldn't bend down. The toilet was like a child's toilet. It was like all the way on the floor.
Oh my God.
He's saying no, but
child's toilet, it was low for, I'm sure,
so low
reasons of like possibility of making it accessible for all people, and probably with any sort of.
Sarah's like, fuck this shit. It was way too low for me.
I was like, why is this toilet on the floor? It's so small. And I went to like bend down and my knees were like at my ears. And I was like, this is so uncomfortable. And then my feet were at my ears.
It's such a gross exaggeration.
It felt really true.
On top of like.
Do you want to jump in any of your experience at this point?
Well, I show up because I go park the car and I literally see some like nurse like stream out of there. I was like, I was like, what? What happened? And they both look at me like, we're gonna make a change. I was like, what happened? They're like, they tried to tell her to put it down. I was like, how'd that work out? They're like, we're change. I just laughed and look over at Sarah and she's like in her Doe and Christy Dawn, regeneratively farmed cotton dress, like on, wow. The industrial complex didn't get along with our hippie here and our flowy dress.
So wow. They were also like, you want to take off some of your jewelry? I was like, nope.
Oh my God. You're like, I'm a good.
So at this point we get into our flow. It's not very long. I would say our kids got there, the girls got there, an hour later or so. I got my IV and got the
Step D.
No, it's like penicillin, but I got the other version of that. The antibiotic for the groupie strep. And they took some blood from me. I had just sort of like got into this music. Like Eric had made a playlist for me that was amazing. So the girls arrived and Nikki came and we all just kind of got into this like labor bubble flow situation. And, as Nick kept asking if I was in transition yet, she was not really asking me, asking everyone else, like, is she in transition? There's definitely a reason she was asking that, right?
Yes. She asked if she could have a lollipop. And our kids don't have lollipops. And I said, yes, you can have a lollipop after mom has gone through transition, which she'd already been through, but she didn't know that.
True.
And my goal was that we'd attach something positive to when you actually started, like, because I thought we were having the same birth as winter. You're going to have like, 20 minutes of real screams and then we're going to have a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to have that lollipop during that part of the birth, during the streamy part, right? So that she could be like jacked up.
Distracted.
Distracted.
With sugar.
So that was the plan.
Well, the part that I forgot or didn't include that I want to include is that there was a huge emotional release that happened during all of this, which is that while I think right before the girls got there, I was laboring and laughing and I was holding Wyatt's hand and I was like hugging on Eric and we were like kind of dancing and I was like giggling about the fact that I was so uncomfortable but like couldn't find a place that made me feel comfortable and so I was just like in this really big high, like big smile on my face, and then all of a sudden in my mind I thought like, oh my gosh, like we're meeting this baby. This is finally happening after all this time. And I just immediately started crying.
Aww.
I started crying so hard and was just like, wow, like we've been through so much.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this is happening today, And
you've been so patient as well. Like I always talk about how patient you've been, like unwavering patience with bringing this baby earthside? And it like hit you in that moment.
It hit me in that moment, yeah. And you too, right?
I mean, when you articulated it and I started thinking about the 2 pregnancy losses.
3.
Mm-hmm. Chemical and then a DNC.
The double.
Pill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the pill one was first and then the chemical pregnancy and then the pregnancy that ended up in DNC.
Yeah. Is that what you mean by patient, Teresa?
Yeah, like she's been so... I was just saying that in one of the earlier episodes, I was like, Sarah just had this unwavering faith that she was going to have a baby in her arms at the end of all of this. Like you guys would go through the emotions of getting so excited and we'd all be so excited and then it would end in loss. And then she went through that again. And then she went through that again. And then here she is, Labor Day, knowing she's about to meet this baby after all this time and this like beautiful, like being in the waiting space.
Yeah, it was really it hit me as like such a release, you know, and that's why I like was crying. And then I looked at Wyatt and I was like, I'm having my release right now. Like this is,
and he's your first baby.
I know. He was just like, he like shook his head and smiled and he was like, yeah. And exactly, like I'm holding the hand of my first baby who's like 11 years old. And I'm so vulnerable and so like, you know, at the peak of it, the transitions really, because it was like they were so big at this point. And then the girls came and then, you know, at this point I'm way in the zone when they're there. And I get on the ball and I'm like, you know, I was kind of trying to find comfort on the ball. And then Esme comes up behind me and she's like, do you want a shoulder massage? And I was like, yes. And so she like gives me a shoulder massage. It was so sweet. And I just loved the energy of like having them with me. And then it just like kind of shifted where I was like, I feel like we should check me. Like, I feel like my body's wanting to push. And it's always happens when I get to like 9 centimeters that my body goes like, oh, I want to push, you know?
And you get the cervical lip traditionally.
Yeah, traditionally I would. And so I start feeling that it's not like crazy fetal ejection, but it's just like when it gets to the peak of the contraction, like I want to bear down. Like I almost feel like I go to the bathroom, which is like what you should feel like, oh, you have to go number 2, right? Meanwhile, I did on Eric's shoe right there. In that moment, he's like in a squat holding me up. I'm doing my squat on the side of the bed and I looked down and I like went poo on his shoe and somebody came in like cleaned it up. I was like, oh my God, I just pooped on your shoe.
So good. Oh.
They weren't Nikes. They were like work boots. So
it was great. I was like, well, they're brown. It's
oh my God. That's so good.
And really, like that took a while. I was doing that for a while.
Pooping on
the
your
side
shoe?
of the belt. No. I'm squatting next to the bed and
can you talk to me about the vocalization? Like what tools were you leaning on at this point now that you're around 9.5 centimeters?
So I was trying to do the like breathing the baby down and, you know, that sort of thing. I was trying to like, I kept like doing, like trying to loosen my jaw. I was, you know, really trying to let go in between the contractions and they started to ramp up. I think they were coming like every couple minutes at this point?
Yes. And
then I said to my doctor, I was like, I think we should check because they're, you know, I really am like starting to push, but I want to make sure that there's nothing in the way. And so she checked me, which is always my least favorite thing when I'm this far along because I have to lay on my back and it's just like my body doesn't want to do that ever. It's so intense. But she checks me and she's like, yeah, you're about 9, but your cervix is really stretchy. And so I think you can just push past it, like push the baby past that, right? And so, so she did, at this point, she wasn't trying to hold the cervix back. But Eric did say, like, this is the point when we did that before, you know? And so I did a few more like pushes in that sort of squat position. I think they asked me if I would do like a sideline position.
That was apt. So you did a couple of squats.
Okay.
Standing up, lots of pushing. And she was, at some point, she did put her hand in the cervix at that point.
And she would get it. The head would start going past, and then she would pull her hands out, and then the head would go back. And so we were like, why is this happening? Like, and it wasn't, there wasn't progress being made. I could feel that inside of me. Like, I wasn't feeling the sort of opening up. In the first now, I was like, she's not getting past the cervix. Like, I don't know what's happening, but it's like not happening. So then,
Demo side position.
Then they asked me to go on my side, which I also hated so much. But I'm down to try anything, right? So I'm like, okay, great, let's do it. It's so intense. And
are you screaming through them at this point? Are you loud?
Unfortunately, yes, I'm very loud at this point because the intensity is really high, but I'm not able to use gravity anymore to help me get baby down because I'm on my side. But I also understand that side lying, like if you read Ina May's books, the side lying position is really, really good. It's a great tool for if your baby's not in the optimal positioning. Well, obviously my baby was not in optimal positioning if she wasn't coming through at this point, right? So something was off, but we didn't know what. I ended up like sort of scooting my way sideways across the bed instead of actually being on the bed. So I had like one arm on the floor and my other legs were off to the side.
I love that photo.
Eric was holding my head up and the doula, I wanted my legs like apart because I just hate them together. Maybe it's the way my pelvis is, but it's like, it almost feels like a deep bone pain when that happens. So she has my leg and I just straighten it. It goes straight into the air. And I'm my legs up and I'm like so loud. And our Wyatt becomes pretty emotional at this point, right?
Darling.
He's clocking two things simultaneously.
Yeah.
Which is an amount of pain that you're in went up exponentially. Like you're in real pain.
Because when I was on the side of the bed, it wasn't like that, It was like I was trying to get the baby down, but I wasn't experiencing like pain. It was just more intensity and I was able to ride the waves.
And then he's also super emotionally intelligent and like kind of reading the room. And he's recognizing that something isn't right. Like something isn't going the way it's supposed to, which is why we've made this video. And he's constantly watching the heart monitor of the baby, knowing that it needs to be, 120 to 140, 150. And he sees it continuous. It'll dip down into the 90s during moments of duress. So he's worried about that.
And he was really worried about the baby. And then he told me when we talked about it later, he was like, it was just really hard to see you like in that much of a struggle at that point, because like he remembered Esme's birth and he watched the other birth on FaceTime, but like those pushings, it was quick, So this
felt like there was progress, but the room shifted to
the energy was different.
What's going on? Yeah. And this had already been a couple hours. We're talking like
now we're into hour 4 or 5.
No. Well, I'm talking about pushing hours. Just like a couple hours of pushing.
Oh my God,
at this point.
Sarah, I cannot.
Yeah.
Because I know how intense those last, or you're thinking they're the last ones. You're thinking, cool, I got like max 20 of these and then this baby's out. And then yours are just ongoing.
Contractions are coming every 90 seconds. I keep putting my hands up there to be like, where is this progress? And it's not there. At this point, my doctor's like, the cervix is swelling. We have to make a pivot. And I'm like, oh no. A lot of doctors would be like, we need to go do surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the cervix is swelling shut. You gotta we can't do this vaginally. Something's wrong. She didn't do that. She said, I have a plan. She's like, I'm going to give you IV Benadryl. It's going to unswell the cervix. And then we can push baby through, right?
Yep.
She was like, step 2 of this is if we need it, we can do a walking epidural or like a low epidural, however you call that. And that will stop the intensity of the feeling of the fetal ejection so that I'm not pushing at the peak of it every time. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's do the Benadryl, and then we might need to do that too. The contractions are every 90 seconds. The fetal ejection is out of control. Oh. It's like I did every tool I had in my toolbox. It was like, okay, first one's coming. I'm going to breathe. When it comes to the very peak of it, I'm going to breathe through it. And I was like doing my breath, like all the things I needed to do. Got to the peak and I'd be like, ah! And I couldn't stop myself from pushing. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like up on my knees, holding onto the back of the bed. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try something else. Tried to go to a different place. I tried to get out of my body. I was trying. And I started saying right after the peak of that, what would I start saying?
Well, so they ordered the Benadryl and the walking epidural at the same time. The Benadryl they put in 6 minutes. The epidural, something was wrong. We couldn't figure out why it was taking so long. The story was that the guy wasn't in the hospital.
Oh my God.
They wake him up or bring him from his house.
And the plan was that if the Benadryl worked and I could push past, then by the time he got there, whenever he was arrived, we could just be like, oh, we don't need it now, right? That was the thought.
Well, she also wanted your body to relax enough to do the next segment, which was pushing with the swelling of the cervix completely gone. But the Benadryl had fully kicked in.
Yes.
By the time he got there. But it was impossible for you not to push.
Even with the Benadryl.
And the Benadryl they were like, oh, you might feel kind of weird from it. Well, you know me in medicine. I felt like my eye was coming down my face. It was like, my eye is really droopy. Something's wrong with my eye, in between contractions. I'd be like, what's wrong with my eye?
No. And how are the girls at this point?
They left. So Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
We, as we got into the pushing phase, when things were not progressing and we were sort of pivoting, then Eric, was it you that made the decision?
So I said, you guys, I think it's so late. Let's get some sleep and we will FaceTime you with the baby. We'll wake you up in a couple hours when the baby's here.
Yeah. And I got that message from Sonia because she had said she started to push. Baby will be here probably within the hour. And so I had my phone literally attached to me. I was doing washing. I was like,
Yeah, that was 8.
Literally kept looking at it. And then an hour later, because I was expecting a few more updates, and an hour later, and I know she had said it would be here within the hour, or she had guessed that, I was like, hey, just checking in. How's things are going? And then she was like, well, she's working extremely hard. I am taking the kids home. And, hopefully she's going to get a little bit of rest, and then she's going to try again. And I was like, whoa, okay. And immediately I was like, oh no, something's off here. It doesn't seem right.
Exactly. That's where we were all at. So the girls and Wyatt went home. They all went home. Wyatt was so emotional, but as soon as he left the hospital, he was like, okay, it's all going to be okay. Shani said that he felt really good once they left. But he was just so worried seeing me like that, and so we did the Benadryl. I didn't feel good. A half an hour. I think for a half an hour, every 90 seconds, I was breathing through these contractions or trying to, and then continuing to like have the fetal ejection at the peak of it every time. And after each one of those peaks, I would say, I need help. I need help. And Eric was like, he said it was the saddest part. Like him and the doctor and the doula and everybody were like, it was so sad because like, no, first of all, like he'd never seen me like that before. But also it did not feel like anything I'd ever felt before. Like it felt so crazy to not be making progress during that point. So really, instead of like something pushing through, it was like something like just like pushing against, you know? And so it just made the like levels so intense. And I was so frustrated, but also like doing everything I could to like try to make it work the way this plan was going. So then I kept looking underneath my armpit, like, because I was like above the bed like this. And I kept looking back every time to be like, is that guy here yet? Because he's going to come.
Yeah.
This girl. And then, you know, these contractions are so intense. And he's going to put it in. And like at some point, I'm going to be able to like, you know, unswell. The cervix will unswell. Like this is the whole plan, and all we're doing is waiting for the sky. And so it almost like makes it worse. It's like when you have to go to the bathroom and you're on your way to the toilet, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So finally he comes in
with his backpack.
I didn't even see his face. I had no idea what he looked like. I have no clue. I just know that they put a cap on me and they started taping my back, and Eric was in front of me, so I'm like bear hugging him. They're asking me to sit a certain way, and I'm having the contractions like bent over like this.
You're sitting on the bed with your legs off, with your arms wrapped around me, and they're telling you not to move.
They're like, don't move. God. And of course, every 90 seconds, I'm like, how quickly can this guy get this thing in? So I end up having a contraction while he's putting it in, but somehow I don't move, right?
Oh my God.
And I was just like, I'm just going to like push through and breathe. And he gets it in. It feels like all that part goes really fast. I didn't even feel it.
So it's not like a bee sting feeling or a sharp. You don't feel anything sharp.
No, they numb you first though.
Uh-huh.
And so when they numb you, you feel like sort of the same as you would when you're like getting Novocaine at the dental office.
Right.
Like it feels like a little sting right when they do that. But then the actual like thing going in for the epidural, I didn't feel at all. Like not at all. Yeah. All I felt was a contraction. And that's what I was focused on, was breathing through that and trying not to move. And then he said he was done. And I was like, what? Okay. And so then how long did that take to kick in? It takes a while.
So he does an initial, shows a 12 milligram. You're like over an hour, but the initial, and they didn't tell us how much. He did a small dose that he hit you with immediately, and that takes effect within, I think, pretty quickly.
It did. Okay. So they were asking me like, how do you feel now? Like, what are you feeling? And I was like, I'm still feeling like I need to push at the peak of the contraction. It's obviously less intense. I can still feel my legs. They were all so amazing about it because they had me elevated. They were moving me from side to side to make sure, because it's all about gravity with the epidural. And they also said it's a lot of chance. So apparently, like some people, maybe you only numb one side, or maybe
stories like that.
Yeah, or you have like an initial headache from it going into your spine, or like whatever it is. So a lot of it's chance as well. But they were like turning me from side to side to make sure we hit both sides and to make sure I was elevated enough so it went down right where we needed it, which was like in that fetal ejection area. Mm-hmm. And so once I was starting to like feel the calming of that in that area, they were like, okay, we want to take a break. We want to rest. Like your body is still having contractions every 90 seconds. We're watching it on this machine.
Did they want you to sleep? Were they like, please sleep?
They asked me to sleep. I think I like just rested. I just like laid there and rested, right? Did I fall asleep? We haven't chatted a little bit. Me and you and Nikki. And
You never fell asleep though.
I don't think I felt
But you
asleep.
you did rest for 45 minutes.
Yeah. I really took like a mental, like, okay, I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to lay here. Like, you know, I was really curious about the baby's heart the whole time. I think I asked Eric every 5 minutes, how's the baby's heart doing?
143.
Yeah.
138.
And then I wanted to, and actually her heart was so consistent from here on out. And the rest of this gets right. So, but once we did this, like her heart rate was more consistent, right?
100%.
Wow.
So
Never dipped below 120 at this point.
I can't imagine. I'm sure the baby is senses the distress that you're also going through. And now suddenly it's like that aspect of it's taken out. You're taking a breather and she's just totally stable heart rate wise. What amazing things epidurals are.
Well, I also talked to, remember my original doula, Anna Paula?
I do.
I said, she wrote me the other day. And so I started writing with her about what happened. And I was like, I really thought a lot about you in this moment, because I remember thinking like you were this, like you're this amazing doula who teaches all of these doulas, but every single birth of hers was different. She had a C-section, she had a VBAC, she had like a natural hospital birth, and she had a home birth. So she had 4 kids and they were all different births. And so she had such an experience, you know, and she had used an epidural before, and then she had births where she didn't. And so I remember thinking in the moment, like, about her and just how like this was just part of her story and this was a tool that she used in her toolbox. And she wrote me back and was like, it's absolutely like what this is for. This is a tool to use to be able to like progress and have this birth vaginally, right? So she's like, it's so amazing that you did it. And I remember thinking in that squat where I was like bent over as the doctor was telling me the plan, like of the Benadryl and the epidural, you know, she started to say to me, like, there's no shame in doing this. Like, I don't want you to feel bad about it. Like, I know you've always had natural births. And I just felt like immediately this is the answer. And I didn't have any question about it. I was like, no, I don't. And I do think we should do this. And it just felt like I was telling Eric, like, it felt like every answer was like dropping in, like, yep, that's the plan. Yep, that's what we're going to do. Yes. Because inside of me, I knew things were not right. And so, and I wasn't going to be like, well, no, I want to have this birth the way that I wanted to have it. And like, you know, and argue with them. I was like, no, let's figure out the best path forward and what's going to get this baby here, you know? So, so anything you want to add to that?
Just that the alternative at that point would have been an immediate C-section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And without Dr. Drake. And if we were in Los Angeles after losing Goldberg, the doctor that we started this journey with, pretty confident to say that he would have done a C-section at that point.
Yeah, he may have.
When I showed my midwives your video at the end of the yesterday when they were over, they were all like mouths agape watching, and they knew all the different maneuvers and stuff. But they said, you know, if she was in the care of a different doctor, that would have been an immediate cesarean. And I was like,
yeah,
this woman advocated for you, had this amazing plan, and like, props to you for just being yes and let's go. What do we need to do?
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing wrong with that option, but she gave you one more option before that option.
Yes.
Which was Benadryl, IV, walking epidural, and let's give it a shot again.
Yeah. She gave me another chance at it, and that was amazing. And she really was like, in her mind, she told me, she's like, I did not have an idea yet that like you would need a C-section. Like, I really believed that you could do this, you know, and that we could like use these tools and then be able to to get that cervix out of the way and get this baby out. So they come back into the room and they're like, how are you doing? And I was like, great. I'm still feeling the peak of the contraction, but I'm not feeling the fetal ejection anymore. So I feel like we're in good shape. And I was like, how are my contractions doing? And they looked at the paper and they were like, wow, like nothing slowed down. Your body is still like laboring down every 90 seconds, you know? And I was like, great. So she checks me. She was like, cervix is out of the way, right?
Yeah.
So it de-swelled? That's what, so it came back down and then it moved out the way?
Yes. The cervix was completely open. The baby had not pushed past the cervix.
No. Yeah, baby hadn't pushed past, but
the cervix had lost it. The swelling was gone, and there was an opportunity to try pushing again.
To not push again.
And there was no lip or anything. It was just fully clear.
Fully clear.
Oh, heaven. Were you so excited when you heard that?
So excited. I was like, okay, great. Now I'm going to jump up and like, let's do it. And I was a little nervous, like, how is this going to feel? It's the first time I've ever had an epidural. So I was like, you know, am I going to be able to move my legs? Does someone have to move my legs for me? And so I started to like move around a little bit. I was like, oh, I can feel my legs, you know? And maybe I should say too that they had told me that there's, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but it's a self-administered button.
Yeah, they have that here.
They wanted me to hit the button one time to not feel the fetal ejection before I was like resting. And so but they weren't doing it for me. They wanted me to do it. Right.
Yep. It was 4 milligrams.
Yeah. So I had to make the choice to do that.
Yeah. And it's capped at 10 milligrams over 20 minutes.
Yeah. So you can't overdo it.
Yeah.
You can only do it when the light is green. And so they were like, you know, we really want you to do it so that your body really fully relaxes. And I was like, okay. So I ended up doing it. I was a little hesitant about that at first, just because I didn't want to overdo medicine in my body, because I'm just like, and she really explained epidural to me and like the process of where it goes and what it's affecting. And because I was asking her like, okay, explain to me again in this haze, like
in your Benadryl haze.
In my Benadryl haze, I was
with
like,
the eye
is it in my butt?
down?
Like the baby, is it like, you know, she was like, no. And so she kind of like walked me through exactly what was happening. And I was like, okay, we need to have you on the podcast because I want you to walk everyone through what actually happens during this, because I won't be able to remember. And I don't.
Can't wait for her episodes.
I know. She's so amazing.
Obsessed.
So then we got to now it's time to push. I'm able to move my body. And the first position I get into is like, I want to be in like a squat.
That's your go-to. You love a squat.
Love a squat, need the gravity. I was like, I'm doing a squat. So I like turn around, get into the squat, really like intense squat where it's almost like I'm sitting on the bed, right? Because like if the baby's head was coming out at this point, I'd be squishing the baby's head. So everyone was kind of like, we need you to lift up a little bit, like just in case.
You're like, sorry, I'm just so flexible.
And I will say that at first, as some of the epidural was wearing off, that I had like administered that extra amount. At first, I couldn't target exactly where to push. I was really trying to find it. But then as that was starting to wear off, I could find it again. It was like I felt where the pressure was.
Asshole.
I felt that's right. Felt where to go. Somebody in the room was like, remember, it's like you're taking a big poo. And so I was like, yeah, except that I'm still not feeling that. But then it started to come back and I could really feel it. And I think my contractions were like amping up again, like to the intensity level. So I was kind of feeling everything again. But every time I would push, I would ask the doctor, am I making any progress? Because it felt like it was going slow still. And so what we didn't know at this point was that the baby had her right arm against her body and her
Against the bottom of her face, like against her cheek.
Against her cheek, like down here. Her fist was like here.
Which the very first photo I got of her, she had her fist on her cheek.
She sleeps like that. And so that is what was causing so much of this slow progression. She's making herself bigger in girth than what she is. And, and so she's coming down. The doctor also told me that because of her hand being here, it probably was making her head tilt a little bit. So she was coming in a little off of like positioning, right? So which is also why the intensity was so crazy and why she wasn't just like sliding out. So the pushing part,
as if an 11-pound 4-ounce baby would be sliding out without the hand.
Oh my God. Well, I was just going to say, I was like, she's making herself bigger and she's already 11-pound 4 ounce.
Think about how much bigger you are when your arm is right here.
My God.
Or like down, So, so then this part took so long. So much longer than what I ever anticipated it taking. And in my mind, there was a couple of times where I was like, is this me? Am I not pushing the way I should be pushing? But then I could really feel it. So I was like, no, it's happening. So I just kept putting my hands up there and being like, okay, I could feel the hair on her head.
Okay.
Like I know she's coming down. It's just that it's not as fast as I want it to be, but it's happening, right? And so as the contractions were getting more intense and I could feel more, I pushed harder, pushed longer, and kept asking the doctor, are we making progress? And then she was wrong.
Nothing. I'm just
And
right back there where she's like, you're doing great. You're doing great. That was a good push, mama. You're doing great. I was like, are we past the cervix? And she was like, yes, we're past. The head is past the cervix.
The head only.
The head.
Yeah. So, I don't want to drag this out forever, but this went on forever.
Like how long, Eric? What would you say?
We're at an hour and a half now and she can't see the head.
Oh my God. I need to have a nap.
Well, I mean, expectations were like at this point, the baby's going to slide out and you're pushing and pushing and the baby goes a little bit. And then you can tell Melissa's so amazing at like positive reinforcement. But there's the times when you realize, oh, that baby didn't move. She's just giving positive reinforcement because she knows we are desperate to hear it. But she's like, you're doing great. Good push, good push. And we're like, when is this baby coming?
I know.
And how are you doing? Were you like frustrated? Were you like, how were you vocalizing? Like, what was your thing? Was there moments of frustration where you're like, what's going on?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. It's hard for me to remember at that point because I get into like workhorse mode and I get really fixated on progression. I get really fixated. Like I'll say the same thing over and over and over again. Or I'll ask the same exact question over and over again. And I want a really definitive answer. And if I'm not getting the definitive answer, I can feel it. So I'm like, okay, I got to pivot. I got to do something else. So I become like a workhorse. I don't, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but it was so much slower than I think everyone anticipated.
Yeah.
And we had already been through a situation where like we had just done that and it didn't work and we had to pivot. And now we're thinking like, do we pivot again? Like, why is this baby's head why are we not seeing the baby's head?
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that, I mean, Melissa is cool as a cucumber the whole entire time, but it's not the progress that I think that anyone expected at that moment.
So they kept telling me to like get like kind of get up in between each contraction and like kind of go up on my knees because they were worried about my hips because I was in this like squat and I was staying in nice positions that were so crazy, but they were like, we're worried that tomorrow you're going to be like really in a lot of pain if you don't like move around a little bit up out of the squat.
Your knee was in the fold of the bed where the bed folds and it was like very little padding right there. So do you remember when I had slid my hand under your knee because you kept pushing your knee off the side? So it's like on the side.
Yes, I do remember that. I was like, my knee keeps going out and I can't stop my leg from out.
So half just holding your knee on the bed while you licked my shoulder off and he closed.
Poor Eric. Like, I hold on to him in so many, like this time I would say I kissed you more than I've ever kissed you during labor, for sure. I'm like holding on to you, like hugging you, squeezing you, pooped on you, like just making me through it during this labor, because I was like grabbing him in every way possible.
I feel like, and knowing your personality, Eric, and just the way like you like to have answers for things and you like to like figure out how to get shit done. I cannot imagine what was going through your head, and I'm sure you weren't able to vocalize it. You just had to be the support. Just keep being positive. This is great. You're doing great. But I'm sure on the inside you were like, what is going on?
Well, 100%. And then knowing something was wrong and then having that confirmation, which is like, this isn't working. And now we're going to, we should try this. And then coming back to that same place. I've gone, through Wyatt's birth was incredibly hectic. And all this, we're in the same territory as that. But she's in a different type of pain than I'd seen before. And it's the first time she's ever said, like, I need help. Like crying, I need help. But in a voice that was like scared. And at this point when we're like, is this not working? Because now we're past the cervix. Like, what becomes our plan C if this baby is there and not, going the rest of the way?
I was curious about that too. Like, what happens at that point? Can you even have a cesarean at that point?
I didn't want to like have the vacuum or the forceps or anything like that. So like I talked to her about that too. And she was like, yeah, she obviously didn't want to utilize any of those tools. Like I wanted to be able to like really get her down. And so there was a moment when I felt progression for the first time. There's this moment in your somewhere in your pelvis, a little bit lower in your like vagina, where when the baby's head starts to get lower, you feel that and it's like, to me, it wasn't painful. It was that to me was progression. So it felt like something was coming through.
Squeeze.
It's a squeeze. It's an intensity. Yeah, it's a squeeze there. And I was like, yes. And this was the moment where I was like, yes, baby. Yes, I can feel it. And I was so like a cheerleader at this moment, right? I was like, yes. And I started using my hands as my own counter pressure on my butt, where I was pushing against my butt so hard behind me, like holding it up as I was pushing down. So I was like doing this weird, I love counter pressure. And I was doing this really weird thing, almost like if somebody was like trying to like rip it open, your booty.
So you were getting like some leverage from that.
And I'm like pulling up on my butt and pushing down at the same time. And then I would feel more of that squeeze and I would be like, yes, baby, come on. You've got this. We've got this. We can do this. And then I started to feel her come to the, I put my hand on there. I felt her head. I'm feeling that like the moment when it's like, I'm showing you on, if you're looking on YouTube, but the moment when it's like this and the head is like right here, you see the hair, right? So I'm pushing that through and here starts the ring of fire. So I'm thinking ring of fire, we're going to be zippy, get this head out. How many contractions did I have in the ring of fire? Like it had to have been 5?
Oh, at least.
If not more.
I was on coconut oil.
Meaning like every 90 seconds, 5, 6 of these during the ring of fire, head was there. They kept saying like, wow, this is amazing. Your body's allowing the stretch. I'm like, allowing the stretch? She's just chilling in the ring of fire. I'm like, it's burning. I have an epidural and I'm fully feeling the burn. I've never felt the ring of fire before. Like, it happens so quickly that like, I'm like, woof, it was like over and done. And this time she's hanging just there chilling. Like for a long time. Yeah, chilling.
Delicious.
Fully chilling because her hand is here, she's like, she's got a little extra something going on. So finally I feel the head come through and I'm like, yes, like I'm doing the breathing, I'm doing the pushing, I'm cheerleading on, I'm like pumped when things are happening. The whole energy in the room shifts in this moment. Head is out. I remember Eric saying, I see her nose, when her nose comes out. Once her whole head is out, energy shifts. I'm in the Gaskin maneuver already.
Yes.
So I'm on hands and knees and baby's stuck. She's shoulder dystocia, full on. This is not a sticky shoulder. This is a full shoulder dystocia. Doctor immediately goes, okay, we're going to have you do a deep lunge. They lay the bed flat,
You did
right?
2 more pushes in Gaskin.
Did 2 more pushes in
Didn't
Gaskin.
do anything.
Did nothing. She's trying to unlock the shoulders during the Gaskin maneuver. It didn't work.
I've seen this
We got
bit.
so frustrated in that process. Yeah. So then she's like, lay the bed flat. We're going to do this deep lunge. So they go, we need you to pull your right leg up like next to your ear, right? You go into this lunge. And I go, I can't move my leg. You guys have to move it. Like I could move it a little bit, but I couldn't get it up to my like head, right? So Eric helped me pull my leg up, right?
Yeah.
Helped me pull my leg up to my head. And I go into this deep lunge and I start pushing in the deep lunge. And meanwhile, the doctor is on the bed with me, underneath, with her hands inside, trying to unlock one of the arms or one of the shoulders, right? She only lets me do 1 round of pushing in that position. And then she says, okay, here's what's happening. She has the 2 nurses come in. She's like, we need to flip her over. Imagine the giant baby's head is already out.
Yes.
So I go, I need you guys to help me. The nurse goes, we're going to dip your shoulder like this and we're going to go over. And so I started to dip and then everyone turned me over.
Yes, I've seen this.
Thankfully, I had this walking epidural because I remember when they flipped me over with Esme, it was one of the most intense feelings ever, being moved like that with the head out. And so they put me flat on my back. I had a nurse who was on my abdomen.
Yeah. So we had called in the NICU team. So we had like 4 other NICU nurses in there at this point.
Yes. And so we have a nurse who's on my abdomen, kind of where the baby's butt would be.
Yeah.
I had another nurse who's in the right side of my pelvis. So she's going to push, what is that? She explained that to you. She like pushes down on one part of the pelvis that helps
The
like
pelvic
release.
bone. Yeah. When I showed my midwives this yesterday, the Roberts maneuver, the one on the top part of the belly, and then there's that woman was putting what looked like her full strength on your pelvis. And I was asking the midwives, I was like, what is that? And they explained it all to me, but that was hardcore, Sarah. That was your whole stomach was pushed in. It was wild.
Yeah. And so
I haven't seen the video back. So, but you have 1 nurse holding 1 leg, 1 nurse holding the other, and then those 2 people pushing
There's
down?
2 people pushing down. One of them has their both arms locked straight, full body.
you have a
push down. Yeah, I don't know if there was a third one or not. I know you were on a leg. And then the other one was at like the top part of the stomach, like obviously pushing the baby's bum or whatever.
yeah.
But that's a very specific move. And it was amazing because my midwives were like, oh, they're doing the Roberts. And then I hear your doctor saying the Roberts maneuver to the other nurses. And then they just knew exactly what to do.
Yeah. And so we did a couple pushes there. She's like, come on, Sarah, push, everybody push. And she's sort of getting the team in sync too. So they're all pushing at the same time that I'm pushing. And she goes, okay, everybody take a break. Everybody take a breath. We're going to pull her legs straight.
The crank.
They like pulled my legs straight, which is supposed to it's like a clothespin, your pelvis,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, you need to reposition. reposition.
It's like they wound your legs. It looked like a cranking motion, like both legs to the ears and then straight back down again. That was amazing. That was my favorite part. I was like, whoa.
So then once they did that, it made some sort of movement happen, because then she said, you need to push, Sarah. And so I started pushing. I think Nikki on the video was like, Sarah, push. I was like, I am pushing.
Yeah, that was my favorite. She was like, come on, Sarah, push. And you're like, I am pushing.
I was like, I am pushing. And then she gets one of the arms out.
Oh,
the arm is out. The head is out. Now she needs to get the other shoulder out, right? And so then she starts working on that shoulder. She tells all of us when to push, tells us when to break, gets that shoulder up. You can see on the video, shoulders up, arms out, heads out. And then she has me push one last time, and I push. And
the whole thing came out. Your giant baby slipped out.
Literally unlocked, and she just shot out, right? And she pulls her up and puts her on my chest. And she was like, that was a tough birth. That was a
really hard birth, Sarah. That was a really hard birth. Yeah, I loved that. It was such a validation and an acknowledgement of the work that you had just put in. And it was the first thing that she said. That was amazing. I think that might have been my favorite part.
And then she goes, we're going to need to take the baby to the warmer. And as soon as she said that, it was like, beat. And then baby started screaming.
Oh.
Yeah. And when she started screaming, I was like, yes. Baby. I think Eric was crying.
I was crying. Watching the video.
We were all like,
because such a relief.
Tears.
Well, because I will say, in the video, when the head is out, that doesn't look like a baby filled with life. I know it was, but the head looks like purpley, and it's not doing it. There's no eyes open. It's not sort of moving around or anything. And obviously, I hadn't taken its first breath yet. But you're watching the video and you're like, I just want this baby to breathe when it comes out. And she did, which was amazing. But yeah, when you look at it back, you're like, holy shit, that would have been so scary.
But it also feels forever.
It was, in reality, it was probably 3 minutes of that baby being fully stuck. But when you are looking at the lifeless head of this baby who was purple and gray at the same time, and you can feel, not from, Melissa, because she was so in control, but you can feel the energy of fear in the room with experienced NICU nurses of this is hectic. And when changing positions from, the gasket maneuver, which is how you get that baby out, and that doesn't work, to a deep lunge, and that doesn't work, to now we're in a position when you're on your back, like Roberts or whatever you said it was, that they are pushing so firmly on your stomach, which I don't know how anyone would have done that without an epidural. I think your body would have passed out from the pain because it looked so brutal. And I don't know if Nikki could capture it on camera, but watching Melissa try to dig a shoulder out, her hands and her arms were quaking from the muscle strain of how hard she was trying to get a shoulder, knowing this is it, right? This is that moment which there is no plan C.
No.
You baby
There's
out,
no
or
option.
we're gonna have oxygen depletion.
And I think Sarah said that it was a couple of minute dystocia, but Melissa's also dealt with a 13-minute shoulder dystocia before.
I think she said 12.5 seconds or something, or 12.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which to me, I don't know how you, I've seen some crazy catastrophes in my life. And I've seen Wyatt's birth when he got stuck. I think it was his just one shoulder.
He just had the sticky shoulder.
He had the sticky shoulder.
But that was 4 hours of pushing as well. That one was long.
Right. And your cervix was swollen.
But
too.
you were never because I was there too, you weren't ever screaming for your life or panic or fear or anything. It was just you seemed to deal with it fine. We were all holy fuck. But you were dealing with it fine, you know?
Yes.
But it's also like, think of the journey that you've had with now 4 kids.
Yeah.
And the knowledge you both carry, the community that you've built that now carries this knowledge. Like, I don't think we knew how sketchy Wyatt's birth was at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And at this point, we knew that this wasn't normal.
Yeah.
And you knew that this baby in this position, not coming out with those, you know, the gasket and then that deep lunge, which was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
You're so flexible, by the way. I'm like, why can you do the splits? Because it definitely looked like you were in the splits.
I would have done them if they asked me to.
Oh my God.
And at some point, Melissa told me, she was like, we're going to have to take the baby because we knew the meconium was, the water had broken and the meconium was going to be ingested into at least the sinuses, if not the lungs.
Yeah.
So she said to me in preparation, Teresa, knowing my brain, we're going to take the baby straight to the tent and you know, make sure we do suction. She may not be breathing, in which case, well, that's what we're going to do.
The warmer. Yeah.
And so when that baby, she said those words to you, calm as a cucumber. And right before she went to take her, that when she screamed, and it didn't sound like a newborn scream, you heard it. It sounded of, you know, a 6-month-old baby being like,
Yeah.
I just wept. Like the tears were just streaming down my face of just like, and also like watching somebody that I love so much just go to work. Like I was so in love. And I said it to you yesterday too, just like how proud I am of your ability to do such incredible things under the most difficult of circumstances. Like it just blew me away and was so, I mean, both Nikki and I, it's the first time I've ever said that out loud. I was like, Nikki, are we? And she was like, she was scared too. So Nikki was, I mean, she can talk about it if you have her back on, but both of us were, as 2 people that don't get scared, we were both really scared.
Yeah. It was, I don't know, like I just don't stop at all. And I don't know that I've ever asked for help in any of my births. So it was a whole different level of feeling and intensity than I had felt before. And now that she was out and she was screaming and I just like couldn't, I was so overwhelmed with emotion. I could not stop like laughing and just like holding her. And, you know, the doctor was milking the cord to get her all the like, you know, bits of blood and nutrients and everything that she needed. And then, you know, they had Eric cut the cord after we delayed a little bit. And then they wanted to take her to the warmer to suction her out because she did have a lot of meconium. When they took her to the warmer, I started to hemorrhage, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
well,
gosh,
yeah.
yes.
I mentioned that. So I walked over, they did the sinuses, but you could still hear it in her lungs. So they did 2 passes to get it out of her lungs. And there was so many ounces of fluid with meconium in both.
Wow.
And as I walked back over,
She would have been like 12.5 pounds, by the way, had they weighed her in that moment.
as I walked back over and having seen you post, like Winter, the placenta got stuck, right? And Wyatt, you bled, but not like this. This was like pouring. But it wasn't the amount of blood. It was the pace in which it was coming.
Oh.
Like the pace in which the blood was coming out was like a river. Like I was like, oh. So your hemorrhage. Yeah. The joy and excitement of like, and relief lasted about 2 minutes. And then the river of hemorrhage blood came.
And did you know, Sarah, were you starting to feel faint? No, because you were just elated and like, thank God.
I was totally, you know, I think in my mind, what I was thinking was now that baby was out and I knew baby was okay and they were suctioning her out, I could hear her crying. She was crying the whole time. So it's like, it was such like it was such a great feeling to hear her be fine. And for me now at this point, I started thinking like, oh my gosh, like I had this epidural and I'm so shocked that like I can feel all the happy hormones. I feel overwhelmed with all the like love and elation and everything. So for me, I'm in my mind going, wow, this is so cool. I have to remember this because I want to tell everybody like this was an amazing thing this tool that I was able to use. And so meanwhile, Eric's like standing at the end of the bed, with the doctor, and he's like, I can tell that he's worried. And the doctor looks at me and she goes, I'm going to give you this medicine, and this medicine in your IV. You're losing some blood. And, then the word hemorrhaging came up at some point. I noticed everybody sort of started shifting around, doing stuff like everybody was calm, but they were like
on a mission.
On a mission.
Yeah, everyone was on it. So I was just kind of like, oh, weird. It's weird that I don't feel it. Like, and I didn't know that was. And then she started saying like, okay, I need to get this placenta out because of the bleeding. We need to get this process going so that we can get your uterus contracting and like all of that. So she starts working on the placenta.
Did she give you any Pitocin they often will administer Pitocin to get the placenta out.
Did they do that?
Yes.
She mentioned doing that.
Yeah.
So there was a coagulant. There was, because the top of the uterus had contracted, but the bottom of the uterus, just I think because of the difficulty of the birth, she explained this, where the fibers go this way instead of like this, those wouldn't contract, which contribute to the amount of
bleeding,
hemorrhaging.
And then you would have ended up with a retained placenta and fucking hell. Okay.
So, so then, so they gave me the 3 different medicines. She started to get the placenta out. That came pretty quickly.
So much better than winter. Winter was a battle.
Yeah. This was very fast. I felt it. I always talk about how when you feel the placenta come through, it's like, so it feels so good because it's like
warm
this
and
hot
squishy
pad coming through your vagina. I hate them pushing on my stomach, but when that thing comes through, I'm like, oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It feels
And the placenta was enormous.
And
she did something which we can send to you. She lifted up the placenta from the bag itself.
Yes, yeah.
And she had to pop it. Remember this? We forgot to say this.
Oh, shoot. She did.
The bag was in the front.
That's right. The bag was in the front. That was part of when the baby was coming down and I had the epidural and all of that. She ended up popping the rest of the bag because it was too, she's like, this, what did she say? It was like leather. She said, your bag is
like she was in there like flexing her tricep trying to open it.
Crazy. And then all the water came out and it was a lot of meconium.
Yeah. She lifted it up and had the placenta in the bottom to show us
where the baby was sitting.
This was her studio apartment where she's delivering for the last, which was such the craziest visual.
I love seeing that.
Yeah, it's so incredible. They stretch
out the walls of it and they're like, they were in here. Yeah.
I was so blown away by that. But it was fast.
So it was fascinating. You were in there.
I love that.
My placenta had calcified a little bit.
Yeah.
Remember how you told me that yours had calcified? So I had some very small calcifications kind of throughout. It was a really big placenta, but I never had a calcification on a placenta before, but she said it was because I was so far past my due date.
Yes.
Like my placenta started calcifying, like getting little bits of calcification at like 40 plus 3. So that's normal. Yeah.
She was like, if it didn't have it, I'd be a little concerned.
Right? Yes.
So it just gets better. So then after the hemorrhaging, then they're like, okay, that starts to calm down. Placenta's out, baby's coming back over. They put baby back on me. They didn't weigh her or anything yet because they're like, baby needs time with mama. And so they put her on me and I get her nursing and she nurses exactly 30 minutes after she's out. This is right at the 30-minute.
Getting that liquid gold.
Mm-hmm. And she knew what to do. She just sort of like put a little mouth around.
Latched right away. It was like that first latch is always so important. And it was like a beautiful latch. Pain wise, my bottom is hurting. I can feel all those feels. So like those things are happening there.
Part of the story.
What?
So there was a nurse working that was wiping your tushy. with like industrial soap.
Oh, yeah.
And you were like, it's burning. And we were all like, yeah, okay, it's burning because you're giving birth to a baby. No, you were super allergic to probably the foaming agent in the industrialized soap.
No.
And it had the craziest reddish rash all over your tushy.
It did.
That's why it hurt. We were all just assuming it was part of the birthing process. No, you had a complete and total
Sarah,
reaction.
that is so you. Like it's not organic, it's not natural. It's like your body's like, reject. Oh my gosh.
I kept telling them it was hurting. I was like, my butt is hurting. Like it hurts like so much. It's like burning. And it wasn't until she was like, sort of cleaning me up and, cleaning the blood off, and the placenta had been out. And she was like, I'm going to check to see if you have any tearing. That she was like, oh my God, dude, your butt. And she's like, I'm so sorry. She literally said that.
I know, it's such a doctor. Oh my God, dude, your butt.
Oh my gosh. After everything, you need to send them some Bayo, some shampoo, some body wash. Use this on your patients instead.
Sure, those things cost like $400 for one sliver of them because they were so terrible.
Oh, no.
She was like, you have the gnarliest allergic reaction in your butt right now. Like, it's crazy. It looks like you're bleeding on both sides. It was so painful. I just, everything down there is kind of crazy. So I was like, I don't know what's going on down there. But I was like, I don't feel like I tore. I don't feel any pain in any one specific area. Like I just kind of feel an overall like intensity, but not, I don't think I tore. And so she was like, well, we'll see. And I was like, maybe like a rug burn or something. I don't know. And so she starts looking and what did she say?
I don't remember.
Yeah. She was like,
that was what the baby had.
You didn't tear. She's like, I can't believe it. No. And then she told me I had a platinum pelvis, which I don't even know what that means.
But you'll take it. I always say you have a magical vagina. The fact that you don't tear and have huge, huge babies. And the fact that not only was she 11 pound 4, but then she also had the hand, and then you had the doctor's hands in there as well. Your vagina just like springs out, springs back in. Wee.
He was doing his thing that he does. I'm always telling him, you're in charge of my vagina. You got to keep it all together.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I think you should start manufacturing or selling that coconut.
Oh my God, you so should. Call it unicorn vag.
Vagina juice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know if vagina juice.
No, it's going to make the cut.
Or if that's going to make it to the Target shelves.
Vagina juice or unicorn vag. Probably not that either.
Can you give me the nickname vagina juice?
These girls say it's great. I'm getting terrible. So now baby's nursing. I'm holding her here. We're all kind of sharing a little of our story. The medicine's gone in. I'm not like hemorrhaging. I'm just, they're doing the coming over to me every few minutes and pushing on my tummy a little bit just to make sure it's contracting. And we're just kind of chatting with Nikki. And then I go, Eric's like, are you hungry? You haven't eaten in so long. And I'm like, yeah, I really need water. I was like, do they have ice here? And everybody started laughing. They were like, yeah, they have ice here.
Nice.
And so they go to get me ice and water because I'm so thirsty. I was like, does this make you thirsty? Like, what's happening to me? Because I feel like this crazy thirst all of a sudden. And I can't get enough. Like, I keep sucking down water and chomping on the ice. And then Eric brings me an apple and I start to eat this like couple pretzels and I'm like, oh, something's wrong with these pretzels.
Yeah, they gluten-free. They taste terrible.
It tastes terrible. And like, they don't taste right. And I was like, what is that? And I go, Dr. Melissa, she's still like down here at the base. And she's like, I'm like, is there any sort of side effect to this medicine? Blah. And I just started throwing up like crazy. Eric grabs a throw up bag. He puts it in front of me. I'm like, what's happening to me? And I can't stop throwing up. I throw up like 7 times. Look all the way out.
The bag is full.
The bag is full. Long bag.
There's some on my boot. So the poop and then the throw up is on my boot. But most of it I can get into the bag, which is completely full of throw up.
And I literally look at all like, is this from medicine? And the doctor's like, you are so sensitive to medication.
That is, again, so you. I love it. You're like, the body's like, reject.
like nothing. It wants nothing to do with any of that.
Oh my God.
Whatever. So then, then after I throw up, I'm like, okay, we're
good now. Surely that's it.
Gotta be the end of it.
Yeah.
No, at this point, that's gotta be it, right? And so then we all just kind of have I don't even know what time it is. Baby was born at 12:37 a.m. and
on the 17th.
On the 17th, because we kept saying like, all right, is baby gonna come on the 16th or is baby gonna come on the 17th?
I would have bet the house.
I know. I mean, we had plenty of time.
Well, I love 17. I've got 2 babies born on the 17th, and I have 2 babies born on the 12th. And it's Ocean Rain and Bodhi Rain, and they're both born on the 17th.
That's so sweet.
I know. I just told Bodhi, I was like, oh, you've got one more connection. 17.
It's so sweet. Oh my
I know.
I love it. I love that she has B's middle name.
I know. It's so cute.
So cute.
So if Bodhi and Ocean got married, it would be Bodhi, Rain, Palmer.
Ocean, Rain, Palmer. Oh my God.
It would be Ocean, Rain.
I hope she likes older men.
Yeah. 11
years older. Oh, how cute.
So, it was definitely a different birth. And we've had a lot of chats about it since. And I think immediately I was like, I could do that again.
Oh my God. Eric's like, please never say that again. Yeah, cool. When's the next one, babe? Like, when are we going to have the next one? That's a lot to process.
It's a lot to process.
Sarah and I have already workshopped if you were to have another baby. We're like, well, you could do this option. You could have your water break. You could get induced at like 39 weeks and then baby would be smaller, or you could just go straight for the cesarean, or, we've already workshopped it. Eric's like, cool.
Yeah, listen, that I'm always going to support whatever it is that you want to do. But that's the first time I've really felt a level of like danger in it, like where I was so thankful for modern medicine and the toolkit that it provides when things go sideways.
I was so grateful to be at the hospital. I'm
so grateful.
So grateful to feel very divinely like I felt a lot of I just felt like we were very guided the whole way.
Yeah.
Our doctor was so on it. She knew everything what to do. We had an amazing team. We had Sonia there. We had the kids there. We had the doula there. We had the most incredible nurses. The hospital was amazing. And I just felt so held the whole time. And with all the work that I had to do, I felt like I could lean on any of those people there to help me along the way. And nothing was better than the next day, the kids coming in and meeting their baby. And just being the next morning as the sun's coming up, we're both here alive and okay. And so much gratitude for that. And just I couldn't stop looking at Eric and just being like, oh my God, I just love him so much and love that he's who he is in those moments. And then staring at her all night long, basically, because I was just she's breathing, she's okay. Every time a nurse would walk in to push on my stomach or
every half hour
check, her lung, I would be like, how's her lungs, and how's her temperature? And is she okay? And
she's great. Respiratory rate is great.
Yeah. And I just was
lungs sound great.
Grateful that we were in a good place.
Wow.
So
what an incredible story. And also, I just feel like so many people are listening to this right now completely in awe, but also grateful that you were willing to share the entire experience and, what birth can look like when you have an intention, you set your intentions, you have your expectations. Doesn't matter if it's your first birth or your fourth birth. Birth is very individual and it's always, always different. So it's important to share this story. And also, if you guys remember, which I'm sure they will, right before Sarah gave birth, we had an episode and she was like, yeah, I woke up and I said to Eric, I need to release this fear of an epidural and getting an epidural. And then whether that was foresight, intuition, you knew that was going to happen, the fact that you've now experienced it and you understand how it works and how important it is to so many births, I think that's like what a beautiful salve and a balm, and also a gift to the people listening to this right now to hear how it really works and how beneficial it can be.
I had forgotten that.
Yeah. Remember, because I said, like, I'm feeling scared. I'm scared of like the having to get an epidural or having to do a C-section or like, and I feel like I have to say this out loud because it's like living inside of me. And I feel like I do this every time where I like need to have this release, you know, and then we had this episode where I talked about it, my fear of drugs, my fear of like, I've never done drugs before. And anytime I take a drug, I have some sort of weird reaction. So I was like so worried about what if we get to a place where they have to like give me that. And then you know what I mean? And I was just like afraid of it. And so I was like, now I'm talking about it because hopefully that'll help me release the fear. Well, I can tell you that in the moment when they wanted to use that tool, there was no fear. I was like, done. We got to do it. Let's do it. And then thankfully, a little bit of chance as well. It went well, really well. And my body took it well. And I didn't have any reactions to it, thankfully.
Yeah. You did a great job.
Well done, you guys.
The IV. She didn't tell you that part of the story, but the IV got infected.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she got cellulitis and was expanding for 48 hours with the blood clot in her arm.
That happened. That was day 5 or something.
Will we talk about that in postpartum?
Yeah, we talk about it a little bit.
That was so scary too.
Yeah. Tell us how you felt about that, actually. There we go. Because you were really worried about that.
I was really worried about that because I know that what happens in that situation if it's antibiotic resistant and cellulitis spreads into the actual tissue, it's really dangerous.
It can cause sepsis, can't it?
Well, it can be a series of things. Like if it's MRSA, you're back in the ER and you're on liquid IVs, liquid antibiotics. And it's a fight for what can be a fight for your life.
In your organs.
Sepsis. Necrotizing fasciitis.
That was the part that was scaring me, was being separated from her and them. Was like, now I'm going to do this. Now this is going to happen. Like, come on.
Well, and I came in that night, like, I think it was the first night that you'd had antibiotics. And you draw a line, right? And you can see it on your arm. And it keeps going outside the line and keeps going outside the line.
So it's spreading.
Bigger flowers. So it's just, you see this infection spreading up your arm. And then you called out my name and I came in and you were like shaking.
Yeah.
So the baby is 3 days old.
Yeah.
You're shaking in bed. You're like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's wrong. And I know there's an infection raging inside of a shallow vein blood clot that's expanding up your arm. I was scared.
Lots of scary moments.
Yeah, it's I don't want to do this. Like it becomes it was the same way.
Hey.
I don't know. You start having existential thoughts as a person that doesn't have those I don't have intrusive thoughts, but I definitely was scared. I was scared for you. I was scared for this family. Again, thank God for modern medicine.
Yeah.
And also for both of you being so on it and knowing your stuff, because I said to Sarah, I was like, I'm so nonchalant about so many things. I feel like, Sarah, you're so in tune with your body that you were like, this feels weird. It actually feels like there's some sort of cord or something stuck in my arm. I feel like I'd be like, oh, it's fine, and then I'd be in trouble. Whereas you're so on it. She'll be right. Cut to like, oh, it's not right.
But after an IV in the hospital,
Yeah.
like that's the part that if it wasn't in the hospital, it would be different. But the hospital has MRSA.
So scary. You are both amazing. Sarah, this is oh my goodness. I mean, that's why I keep watching the video back, because I wish you guys could see this video. I wish everyone could see this video, because Sarah is it's just this, your way of responding to what was needed in the moment. You're so present, you're moment to moment. She asks for something, you do it immediately. And you do it with like such strength and courage. It's so unbelievable to watch. It's so moving. And I know you're a huge inspiration to so many, and well done, you guys. She's perfect and beautiful.
And Eric's done this entire birth story with vomit all over it.
So much vomit on me.
This episode is sponsored by Dyna Juice.
Oh, wow. Dyna Juice for the win. Next, we'll see it in Target. Yeah, it actually worked. They went for it, guys. They thought it was a really cool idea. All right. Well, you have been listening to the Mother Days podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Bye, daisies. Bye, Mom.